Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Randana Yashodanandana Prajajana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Good morning to you all. Hare Krishna. Good morning. Especially to those watching at home, to those listening in their car. We know you're there. We love you and we thank you for coming in this morning. And especially to those young monks and monkinis who are with us for 1 week. Give us a wave. Where are you? Give us a little wave. Very nice. Have they treated you well so far? Is it all right? Yeah? I hope so. Quick, she's just come in. Very nice. How many days has it been now on the monk program? Day 4. Bit groggy? You get used to it. So we're studying the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 18,000 verse epic, which talks about many, many subjects. Let's hear what's coming in today. 21. I'm looking for the board, but it's all up here now, isn't it? Very digital. So 21. Whenever you're ready. One of the perils of digitization. That's it, okay. Okay. Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Samata Samataha Sanugasya Ha Samatak Sanugasya Ha Samata Sanugasya Ha Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madishad Bhagavan Vrajan Madishad Bhagavan Vrajan Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Samataksanugasyaha Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madishad Bhagavan Vrajan Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Samataksanugasyacha. Excuse me, yes. Samataksanugasyaha Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madishad Bhagavan Vrajan. Gentlemen. And ladies.
Bhavan Bhagavato Nityam Samata Samagusyaha Yasya Jnanopadeshaya Madhusha Bhagavan Vrajan.
Anybody adventurous on the ladies' side? No? Okay. Bhavan, your good self. Bhagavata, of the personality of Godhead. Nityam, eternal. Samata, recognized. Sa anugasya, one of the associates. Ha, have been. Yasya, of whom? Jnana, knowledge. Upadeshaya, for instructing. Ma, unto me. Adishat, so ordered. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Vrajan, while returning to his abode. Translation. Your good self is one of the eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whose sake the Lord, while going back to his abode, left instructions with me. Please repeat. Your good self is one of the eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for whose sake the Lord, while going back to his abode, left instructions with me. Purport. Yamaraja, the great controller of life after death, decides the living entity's destinies in their next lives. He is surely among the most confidential representatives of the Lord. Such confidential posts are offered to great devotees of the Lord, who are as good as his eternal associates in the in the spiritual sky. And because Vidura happened to be among them, the Lord, while returning to Vaikuntha, left instructions for Vidura with Maitreya Muni, Shri Radha Gokulananda, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Generally, the eternal associates of the Lord in the spiritual sky do not come to the material world. Sometimes they come, however, by the order of the Lord, not to hold any administrative post, but to associate with the Lord in person or to propagate the message of God in human society. Such empowered representatives are called Shaktivesh, avatars or incarnations, invested with transcendental power of attorney. Om Ajnanatamrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Bhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hare Krishna. Very nice to be with you in the most comfortable chair in the entire building, made uncomfortable by all the eyes that are now upon me, wanting some absolute truth. What happens if they're expecting the absolute truth and you're not able to give it? What happens? You squirm for half an hour on that chair. Luckily, though, we have Prabhupada's books. So here, Maitreya Muni, a great rishi, is speaking to Vidura. Now, Vidura, as you know, he's making an appearance in this world. He is himself as a great sage. The name Vidura means someone who's intelligent, very wise, and he was contracted as a Brahmin. A Brahmin is a person who knows Brahman, or the spirit. The idea is that if you know the spirit, you become more intelligent. It's not the more religious you become, the more stupid you become. However, some people do. Some people, especially, they go into religion, gullible, with their eyes closed, and they come out even stupider than they went in. That is possible. However, a Brahmin is meant to be quite the opposite of that. Therefore, we talk about spiritual, not religious, which is what most people describe themselves as today. Spiritual, not religious. And if I say to someone, "What's your religion?" they go, "Oh, what are you accusing me of? I'm not religious." Are you spiritual? "Oh, yeah." See, the words, folks, have changed meanings. So if you say the word God, no, do you believe in God? No, I don't believe in God. Do you believe in a supreme? I believe in something out there. I believe in a sort of an absolute. Yeah, keep going. Or an absolute sort of light, love, peace, understanding. So I feel drawn like a tractor beam. It's something like X-rays. I'm not quite sure, but I do believe in something. Well, of course, they're just describing the Upanishadic descriptions of the absolute Godhead, as Prabhupada uses the term. Godhead, this term is not an Indian term, it's not a Sanskrit term, it's actually a English Christian term, the word Godhead. It comes from the Anglo-Saxon, which describes everything that is God and is attributable to God and is related to God and is basically a function or an ad hoc element of God. So all of that is the Godhead. Includes everything. It's like this picture here. Picture shows the lotus, the inner lotus of Goloka Vrindavan, and then the outer manifestation of the spiritual sky. So all of that is Godhead. So just putting that out there. We didn't invent the term Godhead. It's not a translation of something. And back to Godhead there was a bishop in India. He stood up and he said, we should all aim to go back to home, back to Godhead. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati heard that. He said, yes, that will be our motto. So hence that came to back to Godhead. So we don't have the monopoly on Godhead, just so you know. Right, having established that and ripped apart the faith of many of the young faithful, we shall delve into this verse. So here Maitreya Muni he's doing what Krishna wants him to do. Krishna's going back to the spiritual world after 125 years. It's 36 years after the Battle of Kurukshetra. 36 years later, Krishna is leaving the world. His pastimes have come to a close. and he's leaving final instructions. So he leaves final instructions with Maitreya and says, look, speak to Vidura. Speak to Vidura. I owe him some instructions. So Maitreya. And that becomes the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, these conversations between, just like the Bhagavad Gita, there's a conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. So the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is conversations between different people. Sometimes we have conversations within conversations. Just like you pass by someone in the corridor here at Bhaktivedanta Manor, and you overhear the conversation, and someone's saying, so I said to him, what did she say? What did she say to him? No, I said to him that she said to him that when she was younger, she said to her mother, and you get a conversation, inside a conversation, inside a conversation. It's a bit like a Russian doll, these Russian dolls. So in one part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have 7 different conversations on the go. I think one conversation is live, and then they're reporting what was reported, or was reporting 6 separate conversations. So you have to have your wits about you. So in this purport, what does Prabhupada say? He says, Vidura, he's Yamaraj appearing in this verse, in this world. He's been cursed. As a result of a curse, he came into this world, cursed by Mandavya Muni, or in some places Prabhupada says Manduka Muni. Get used to this idea that a lot of different people have a lot of different names, and one sage can be known by 5 different names. One incarnation can be known by 8 different names. So sometimes you have devotees arguing, was it this sage or that sage? Same person. So, of course, Mandukya Muni, you probably had the story by now, he felt it was inappropriate for him to be taken to Yamaraj after leading a very good life. Why has this happened to me? He probably came to Yamaraj and said, don't you know who I am? That's the first response. Why are you blaming me? All I did was this. And so he was cursed. Yamaraj was cursed to come as Vidura. Now Vidura was the offspring of Prashemi, who was the serving girl of Ambika and Ambalika. And Pandu could have no children, but in order to continue the line, Vyasadeva came in as the brother, and it is called Niyoga. Niyoga means we no longer practice it in Kali Yuga, thank God, but it is where the brother, if a woman is having difficulty to bear a child, then the brother of the husband can come and give her a child. Outrageous, isn't it? But it saves a lot of money on IVF. When you talk to women who cannot have children, it's so painful for them. So this was a solution. So you may think, well, I'm sure the brother really, he thought that was a good solution. maybe not the husband himself. But this practice is there because Vedic culture is ultimately pragmatic. It's pragmatic. It's about living your best life now and living your best life in the next life. And how to do that in a speedy way, as early as possible, because life is short. So Vidura was born, and although the other 2 were very much qualified as kings, having been born from a king, because he was the son of a serving maiden, his position was much less. But he was brought into the court. Who brought him into the court? Was it Bhishma? Bhishma spoke up for him, brought him into the court and said, if you have this man, he will really help you. So he gave good advice. But sometimes his advice was rejected. This is the problem of being a Brahmin. As a Brahmin, you can have a lot of intelligence, you can have a straightforward perspective on the world. You can give good advice, but it may be rejected. This is the thing. Have you ever tried to give good advice to someone? You know what the solution to their problem is, but you give them the good advice and they just say, anyway, that's just your opinion. Have you ever tried to do that? It hurts, doesn't it? It's painful. Because you're really genuinely trying to help that person and they reject your advice, thinking that it must come from some slanted perspective. So that was like that. So when the Pandavas, when everything was taken away from them and they had to go to the forest for years and years and years, Vidura came to Dhritarashtra and he said, look, it would be much better now if you avoid this situation. Please try to, muster up the courage and determination to give the Pandavas everything that they need, instead of leaving them with nothing. Dhritarashtra was completely dominated by his son Duryodhana, and Duryodhana completely rejected that. And Vidura said, you will have great problems in the future. Because one who is a pandit, one who knows, can also understand what the future consequences of a way of action is. Just like we have the man who was sitting on the branch of the tree, and he was sawing the branch of the tree in between him and the trunk. Someone came and said, if you carry on doing that, you're going to fall. He said, who are you? Who are you to give opinions? Can you see the future? No, you can't. You don't know anything. You don't know what's going to happen. How does anybody know what's going to happen in the future? So, smack. The man ran back. He ran over to him. He said, I'm so sorry. He said, how did you know? I mean, are you a great mystic? How did you know what was going to happen in the future? In the same way, if you say to a parent, or if a parent says to a child, if you're carrying on eating that green apple, you're going to get a tummy ache. And then what does the child say? No, I won't. Meaning that I'm in full control here. You can't tell me anything. So children and stupid adults who won't listen are in the same category. In between, there's people that are willing to learn. And people that are willing to learn, Brahmins are meant for them, teachers are meant for them, guidance is meant for them. Therapists, anyone that gives you advice, physical coach, whatever it is that wherever there's a starting place, known as a prasthana, and a gatim, a goal, there's a gap between them. Wherever there's a starting place, which is what I am now, and where I want to be, there's a process. And you break the process down into stages, and a coach who's already gone that way will help you. If you don't want a coach and you want to do everything yourself, that's fine. But you may make the same mistakes as the coach did. The only thing a coach does is try to help you from making the mistakes. So whether you call them Brahmin, guru, coach, rabbi, priest, therapist, whatever they are, their business in life is to help you choose the right things over the wrong things that will help you reach your goal as you want it to. The idea is you go to them, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to achieve. Can you help me get there? Yes, I'll help you. Have you reached that? Are you a sprinter? Have you got a gold medal in the Olympics? Well, I have actually. Not me, but I'm speaking for anyway, So, all right, then you can help me get a gold medal. So we're all looking for people like that. So Maitreya Muni was a great sage in that category. And so was Vidura. Vidura was particularly qualified, of course, because he was Yamaraj himself. Now, somebody sent me a whole bunch of digitized photographs the other day. And it was from a travelling party that we had, means a Sankirtan party, on a big single-decker bus. We travelled over England, and very nice. And I looked at those pictures, and I was there, and I was 20. That was 47 years ago. 47 years ago. And I looked at my face then, and my face now. There's a big difference. A lot of lines. I looked at how thin I was then. And I looked at my tummy, and I thought, yep, there's a lot of extra flesh, extra lines on the face, extra grey hair. And when you look at that, you suddenly realize how almost self-realized you become when you're older. When you're older, it's something like self-realization, because you realize one of the bitter truths of the material world is that you only have a very short time. But when you're 20, you don't realize that. You don't realize you're, because you ask a child, a 5-year-old child, you say, how long have you liked, bananas? And the child will sometimes say, I've liked bananas all my life. and of course any adult then smiles, because all your life is 5 years. So there's just no concept. There's no concept of old age when you're young. So Prabhupada was here when he was in his 70s, and he would tell us the average age that we had was 22, 23. You were a really old man if you were sort of 25 at Bhaktivedanta Manor. There was no one over the age of 26, actually, when I became a devotee. 26. In fact, I was looking at someone who was 26 as really old. They'd really been around. They'd really seen the world. So unfortunately, this concept that I'm getting old and very soon I'm going to change my body, I'm going to be out of this body and into a new one, this concept is not there if you're young. Gradually we hope that it dawns on you as time goes by. I was just recently in Zurich in Switzerland, and I gave a talk to a university class, and they'd requested a class on reincarnation. And I thought, well, I don't really want to come at this from the Hindu perspective, or even the Buddhist perspective. I want to come from the scientific perspective. So I did some research on what scientific research has been done into consciousness, the existence of consciousness beyond the brain. That's one area of research that took place at Stanford University. And then the existence of consciousness after the death experience. That's another area of consciousness. Because if it can exist outside the brain, then when the brain dies, you're left with consciousness. Is that possible? So one area of research there. The other research is that where the Atma, or the self, had taken a fresh birth, and what was the correlation between the new birth and the old birth. And there's more than 3,500 very well documented cases of people who remembered not a previous life as, Cleopatra or Napoleon or somebody famous or infamous, Well, my past life, I was Jack the Ripper, I'm a little bit ooh. That's why I'm like this in this life, because I was Jack the Ripper before. Bit of a lad I am. No, nothing like that. But people who remember the names of villages, distances between villages, names of relatives, and the most uncanny thing, and one scientist has practiced his whole life just studying birthmarks. The correlation between a birthmark in this life and the way that you died in your previous life. It's absolutely fascinating. So at the end, the students were suitably impressed. They asked a lot of questions. But this is something they don't tell you in school. Now, one time we had there's a television channel called Channel 4, you probably know. And they came here to make a film. They wanted to make a film about children who remember their previous life. And I said, why children? He said, well, we've come to ask you that question. Why is it children? So children, their last life wasn't long ago. It's only a few years ago. There's one fascinating case of the young boy who had a recurring dream that he was dying in an airplane crash. And eventually he started remembering the name of the ship, the aircraft carrier that he was on, and the name of the plane, and all technical information when he was 3. So when he was 3, he started coming out with descriptions of the mechanical parts of a Second World War aircraft. Fascinating stuff. And then his parents, who were sort of Bible-believing Christians in the southern states of, America and Alabama, they didn't believe any of this stuff, But they took him to a reunion of Second World War pilots. This was back in the late 70s, early 80s. And the little boy, who was by that time, he was 8 years old, he was walking around the room and saying, "Hey, Frank, how are you?" And Frank, of course, is 79, 80 years old. He's looking at him and says, "Who are you, son? How do you know my name?" And he was walking around the room. And so eventually they traced that he was such and such a person. So the television programmer said, why is it that it's only in Hindu, Buddhist and Jain families where they believe in reincarnation that children talk about previous lives? And I said, well, it's not. And then I gave him some research. But I said, what does happen is that when you're in this life and you remember a last life, typical thing is that the child will go to the mother and say, "Mummy, where's my other mummy with black hair?" Mother's blonde. "Where's my other mummy with black hair?" And the mother says, "Don't be silly. Don't be silly. I'm your only mother. You never had another mother, only me." And so because children believe everything that you tell them, absolutely believe everything you tell them, they take that as a fact, and that memory fades. But imagine a culture in which you're not only told, yes, you lived before, yes, you screwed up big time, that's why you had to come back this time, and all your inadequacies were developed over the whole last life, and this time you've got to make up for it by changing. Imagine that culture. That's a culture where people would be anxiously, not anxious, what am I saying, but would be solidly performing activities for the benefit of their spiritual evolution. You'd have that culture. So that was Vedic culture. Prabhupada said, if I go to a dog and I say, he said it here actually, he said, I say, "Mr. Dog, what will you be in your next life?" He said, the dog will go, "Roar, roar, roar." Prabhupada made that sound into the microphone. Similarly, if I go to a man and I say, "Mr. Man, what will you be in your next life? Do you know?" The man will go, "Roar, roar, roar. Get out. I'm not interested in your theories." So the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita give us very practical information, it's scientific information actually, that you will be assessed, according to your activities. And of course, Bhagavatam is very poetic about it, that Yamaraj, you appear before Yamaraj, and you'll have to give an account of your life, all of which has been recorded by Chitragupta, the scribe. So these descriptions are there. So, Prabhupada says that we should know where we're going, we should be very sure about where we're going, we should be very convinced about the life after this one, and in this life be very careful. Execute all our activities with great care as to not perform any further karmic activities which will then result in developing a material body the next time. This can be done, And he said it can be done in one lifetime through yoga. So there is a system called the yoga system. The problem is called bhoga. Bhoga, which means sense enjoyment. The senses are like wild horses pulling the soul into all kinds of engagement with matter. Now, as you engage with matter, the longer you live, the more disappointed you become because the less happiness is in return. It is said that when you're young and the senses are working perfectly, then enjoyment is yours. But as you get older, as William Shakespeare said, and you go into the rest of your life, your nose loses a sense of smell, your tongue loses its ability to taste, your hands lose their ability to do things, your stomach loses the power of digestion. And Shakespeare said, we start and fret upon the stage. Life is just a flickering candle. Another place he says that we enter this world sans eyes, sans teeth, sans nose, sans everything. Everything goes. But how to take that wisdom, how to take an elderly person's wisdom and put it on young shoulders. That's why, when you get older, the idea is that you become a sharer of wisdom. The word guru just means someone who's heavy with wisdom, or heavy with anything. Like a honeybee that's got its little jacket filled with nectar from the different flowers. He's known as Guru Patella. He's a heavyweight bee, heavy bee, Guru Patella. Or a man who's carrying some heavy weight, he's called Guru Brit. Or a heavyweight wrestler, heavyweight boxer, he's known as Guru. And someone who's not carrying very much is known as Lagu. So if you're carrying wisdom, the idea is that you share it with others. Any form of wisdom. I have a friend, devotee friend, he's a paramedic. He's a paramedic, and he works nights. And he says London is like a battlefield at night. He says so many stabbings in the streets of London. I said, we hear about 1 or 2 every week, serious stabbings. He said, it doesn't reach the newspapers. It's 3 or 4 a night in London, every single night. He says, I know, because I'm either visiting and trying to save people who have been stabbed, or sending out the ambulances. It's all the time. It's constant. We can hardly keep up. So his wisdom is to be able to save a person's life in a physically challenging situation. Everybody should cultivate a certain type of wisdom and then share that wisdom with others. That's called having a profession, having a career. Whether it's financial wisdom, IT wisdom, plumbing wisdom, bricklaying wisdom. You know that when you have a person without wisdom, it hurts and it costs money. When a person who comes to your home and does something, who says, oh, I'm a plumber, I can fix something, and then they make a bodge job, it costs extra money and it can damage everything else in your home as well. So we're looking for experts. So a Brahmin is an expert at a particular field of activity, particular field of thought, and tries to share that wisdom. And the older a Brahmin gets, the more that because all of this wisdom is preventing pain, preventing suffering, and elevating our chances of happiness. Some of our devotees here are dentists. We have quite a few dentists in our community. Anybody ever had a really bad toothache? Yeah. And when you go to a dentist, you feel great relief, don't you? That's the whole point. So they're Brahmins whose speciality is just these little things in our mouth. You hardly think about them, but when they hurt, you think about them. That's the only thing you can think about. So the relief of pain and the promotion of happiness, this is ultimately life. But the second part of life is how you can have a good life the next time. Because it's coming in a few short years. We think it's a long life, but it's a very short life actually. So how to have a good time the next life? So the way you do that is you follow the Vedas and you become elevated in your next life by don't do this, this, and this. Do this, this, and this. This is good, this is bad. Make the choice. How do I make the choice between good and bad? It's called tapasya, tapa. So, bhoga, or engagement with the world, leads to roga, which is disease. Bhoga leads to roga, and the solution to those is yoga. Bhoga, roga, and yoga. That's the way back. Was it something I said?
Take them to school.
Take them to school. And young man, if you go to school, it will relieve your suffering. Or so they tell me. You'll be happy in the end. So all of life is like that. Prabhupada said the Western civilization is you have the enjoyment first and then the pain afterwards. Then there may be some austerity. So man enjoys cream bun, cream bun, cream bun, smoking, drinking. Then he goes to hospital and the doctor says, you have to eat up, you have to stop eating cream buns, you've got fatty liver. Stop smoking, you've got dangerously dirty lungs. And stop drinking, again you're killing your liver. So then comes the austerity. But in India, it's the austerity comes first, then the enjoyment comes later. He said it is like a sweet. He said it is like a sweet. In India, if they give you a sweet, medicinal sweet, you notice how you have a sweet in India? It always tastes of cough medicine, isn't it? Every sweet in India, everything tastes of cough medicine. And every vegetable tastes of turmeric. Now, of course, you go into a health shop, and you find turmeric capsules. It's special, people are £8.99 a bag, little bag. Special turmeric health capsules. Little do people know, all you need to do is, it just grows. It will even grow in England. And you just grind it up or dry it and take it, keep you very healthy. 2 miracle cures. 3, I'll give you 3 miracle cures and I won't even charge you. Turmeric, ginger, and neem leaves. Neem leaves. Have you ever had neem tea? You just go up to a neem tree, you go with the leaves, the little leaves like that, you go like that. Put them in boiling water, drink the tea. It is the most disgusting drink that you can ever imagine. And yet, really, really good for you. My friends, this is Indian civilization. Turmeric, doesn't win a taste competition, does it? What's the other one? Ginger. Ginger's okay, actually. I know someone who drinks a little shot of ginger every morning, He says it's Vaishnav whiskey, he says. So these things will help. But you get a sweet, tastes like cough medicine, Ayurvedic. But in the end, they'll give you a little sugar on the inside. However, Western sweet, you'll get a nice sweet, he said, but the Western civilization is like sugar, poison. So we have to learn how to do it the other way around. So tapasya is, let me take voluntary sacrifice, let me take some voluntary pains so that the pleasure will come afterwards. The third stage is, I don't want to come back to this material world at all. Let me break free from samsara. Let me get moksha. Let me attain to complete and utter spiritual freedom. so that the soul again never becomes condemned. Oh, for this, then something else is required. So we find the stories where people come and meet Yamaraj and are judged, and they have to go to a very auspicious or inauspicious place. There was a story of Markandeya Rishi, or even before Markandeya Rishi was born. The parents couldn't have children. Years and years and years have gone by. They can't have children. Sage came to their home and said, well, I'll give you a choice. You can have a child who will live a long time. This child will live a long time, but he will be ugly and stupid. Or you can have a child. Not everybody gets everything, folks. You can't have good looks and intelligence. That's what my mother told me. Anyway, so she said, I never quite knew which one I was. So he said, or you can be benedicted with a child that will live a short life, only until he's 16, but he will be supremely intelligent. And the father was very wise. He said, I'll take the supremely intelligent child. So he was called Markandeya, and he was very, very devoted to Lord Shiva. And when the appointed day came, on his 16th birthday, and he was going to be claimed by Yamaraj, Yamaraj came there on his buffalo with his red dress and his black buffalo and piercing eyes. He said, your time has come. He took hold of the deity of Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva himself came to protect Markandeya. He said, what do you really want? I'll give you long life, but what is it that you really want? He said, I want a life as long as it takes to see the universe being recreated. So this was his benediction. So eventually he got to see Lord Krishna in the ocean of devastation. This was Markandeya Rishi. So when a person reaches 60 years of age, there's special mantras that we chant. And we say, may you live as long as Markandeya Rishi. That's the benediction. So there was a discussion. And during that discussion, the story of Savitri and Satyavan was told. Now, this is another great story where Yamaraj could not lay claim to the good people. Another father and mother who could not have children. For 18 years they did fire sacrifices. 100,000 oblations. 100,000 oblations. The great sage came and said, all right, now you can have a child. But again, I must give you this warning that she won't live very long. She won't live very long. And she'll be married, but her husband won't live very long. Okay. So he said, all right. So that was Savitri. And Savitri went wandering here and there, and she saw a sage who lived in the forest, and he had a handsome young son. And she came back and she said, Dad, I've met him. I've met someone. So who did you meet? Well, he's got no job. He's very handsome, but he lives in the middle of a forest, and I'll be poverty-stricken if I marry him. The father said, oi, oi. But he said, all right, is this the one you truly want to marry? She said, yes, father. And he said, oh, but there's just one more thing. He's got a curse that he's not going to live very long. The father said, I knew it. I was told this by the sage. So anyway, came time. Yamaraj came at sunset. Yamaraj came, and it was time for him to go. We all have that moment when it's time to go. It is no point saying, I'm not ready. No, it doesn't care. Just let me take this with me. No, I'm sorry, you can't bring anything with you. That's it. Naked and screaming, that's how we like you, says Yamaraj. Come with me. So Satyavan fell to sleep. Yamaraj was there, and Savitri began to have a series of discussions with Yamaraj about the nature of life and goodness, and how the power of a good woman can protect her husband. And her life was a good life. So Yamaraj took the soul of Satyavan, and they had another conversation. And then after that he took the soul a bit further and he had another conversation. So this went on for some time. Eventually Yamaraj said, I'm thoroughly convinced you're such a good woman. You're such a good woman that your goodness alone is sufficient to protect him. What do you want? She said, well, I want my father-in-law, who was blind. That's why he was in the forest. He was a king, actually. He was blinded. I want my father-in-law to regain his sight. Yamaraj said, yes, done. I want my husband to regain his life. Yes, done. And the third thing, I want to have 100 children with this husband. So Yamaraj thought about it, and he said, okay, I'll give you the blessing that you can have 100 children. But he missed out with Satyavan. So then Satyavan came back to life, and they lived happily ever after. So, today, in India, if a woman wants to protect her husband and give him long life, they perform a ceremony dedicated to Savitri. And this power of Savitri has been lauded, and people have made books about it and plays about it. And there was a chap called Gustav Holst who lived in Cirencester, way over the west. Gustav Holst. And he wrote music, chamber music. Heard of the Planet Suite? Heard of the Planet Suite? So he wrote something, he did the Planet Suite, which was Mars and Mercury and Neptune and all the planets, pieces of music. But he also got inspired by people coming back from India who'd been serving their time in the army. And so they told them the story of Savitri and Satyavan. So he wrote a whole opera. So there's a whole opera on Savitri and Satyavan. And that was sometime in the 1920s or 1930s, something like that. So you can find that. Very famous story. Most famous story is, of course, Yamaraj and Ajamil, who Yamaraj's servants, the Yamadutas, could not claim the soul of Ajamil because just once he'd said Narayan. He'd called for his son, who was called Narayan. So he called out to his son. Yamaraj looked at his servants, and they said, this man is very sinful. Look, we have it all written down. All his penalty points, all his offenses, all his speeding tickets in life. Yamaraj said, well, that may be true. But at the end of the day, at the very end of his life, he chanted Narayan, and therefore, I can't do anything with him. Therefore, in the future, no one who has these neck beads and no one who chants the name of Vishnu, don't bring them here. They're not meant to come here. And so it is said, the scribe of Yamaraj, Chitragupta, those who chant the holy name of Vishnu, Krishna, he simply stares at their toenails. Just stares at their toenails in awe. Okay, one question. And we'll finish. This is where everybody looks at their own toenails because they realize the time has come for their stomach to be dragged to breakfast. All right. Very nice. Well, I'm very happy to see you all here. Those of you who are coming for a week, fantastic. I hope you get the best time in your life, and that when you go home, you'll be able to carry on studying some of the things that you learned this week. Thank you for giving up a week of your life to come here It's a very great gift that you're giving us, week of your time. And please come back anytime you like. We are always here, ready and waiting. Of course, I warn you, I warn all of you, that's what they said to me. They said, just come for a week. Look what happened. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Om. Thank you, madam. Here, give that to one of your students. How are they doing?
Right now it's just some guest staying, but I'm looking after them as well.